Howdy folks, I'm Carefree Confetti, chaotically covering clean carpets.
I'm Amber.
And here are more clean carpets for us to cover, although, Amber, I must question if they are truly clean if they are covered in confetti.
Well, they were clean before the confetti landed. You're having a New Year's party. You clean up the carpets, but then everyone throws confetti everywhere, so...
I guess so. Moral of the story, throw confetti on your friends' carpets. Let's get started. Alright folks, and our first letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Selling My House Without Telling My Then Fiance? I'm a 34-year-old female. Now my ex-fiance, Deacon, a 41-year-old male, and I have been on a rough patch for months. I tried to be patient and supportive. I sought help and I even tried individual counseling because he doesn't believe in couples therapy. The most painful and horrendous feeling is to learn that I didn't really have a place in his life. He was his own priority, then his ego, then his family, then his hobbies. I can't even put myself at the bottom of the list because he made me feel like I didn't even exist. A few months ago, he asked me to open the relationship. It was out of the blue, and I was very hurt and humiliated. I didn't want to lose him, but I just couldn't do it. So I said that we needed to end the relationship. He said that it was a joke, but I don't believe him. This broke my trust. I asked not to choose a wedding date because my mind was going back and forth. He begged me not to return the ring. I get lots of hot and cold after that. Sometimes he was very affectionate, but sometimes he said that I needed to start losing weight and that my lingerie was uninspiring. My great-grandfather's sister, Aunt Marianne, has lived in poverty for most of her life. And now that things are going much better for our side of the family, he wanted her to come and visit. During one of my emotionally down moments, I impulsively went to visit my family and I realized that my situation with Deacon is too far from what love feels like. I ended up visiting my Aunt Marianne after a lot of thinking and conversations. We decided that it was best just to help her move to our family's home and then help her children and families get better jobs in the area so that they can start over. I got a lot of grief from Deacon for this, and at one point he demanded to see all of my expenses, despite us having separate finances, related to helping my family. I was outraged and I cried, and he yelled at me for it. I put my house for sale thinking that I needed to make a decision and that the house is way too big for me and my kids. He was dead against it, but it was my property and I wanted the money for a college fund and follow advice from my best friend who said that my relationship triggered alarms and that I needed to get rid of those things tying me down in case I needed to leave, and since my family lives on the opposite side of the country. Last fall, while I already had an interested buyer, he brought my mother-in-law, sister-in-law with a couple of kids and his brother for an emergency sleepover. As a backstory, they were living with some relatives and they got kicked out. The overnight thing turned into a couple months of drama, and it built resentment. I sent my kids to my family as I planned to spend the holidays away. After the school semester was done, he only talked about using my kids' bedrooms for his family. I didn't agree. I also was very uncomfortable leaving for Christmas and letting his family take over the house. The house was sold, and I didn't tell him because he would start a fight and because I thought that I would spend the holidays with my family, and I decided whether to come back and rent a place or move away from his family. The more I was exposed to his family, the more I thought about not wanting them near my kids. They give each other the silent treatment and are entitled and rude. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law almost got physical fight over a pack of cigarettes. He would not tell me about a definite date for them to leave, and I had to fight to keep them from spreading into some of my unused bedrooms. I know that selling the house without telling them that the closing was completed wasn't a good thing. I know that it was wrong. The buyer and my lawyer negotiated enough time for me to empty my house. So I was just thinking of putting everything in a storage unit and coming back and making a decision. He said that he was going to spend a week with my aunt and was taking his family. 10 days had passed and I started worrying. He kept pushing his return date. After 2 weeks, I got really nervous and went to his family member's profile. To my surprise, he and his family had engaged in a road trip. I saw pictures of his 2 aunts and people commenting on their long-awaited family trip. I called him and he lied to my face and said that those were old pictures. I sent him screen captures of his cousin's check-ins and he didn't reply until hours later and treated me like I was some dark and negative force trying to keep him from his family. He never addressed that I was literally kept in the dark about their plans and excluded, and told me to leave it at that because I was ruining his mood. I canceled my plans of renting a place. I thought that we would have a much needed sit down and talk about his family, boundaries, and a new living situation. His family staying over were interfering with my ability to completely empty the house because their stay was for an initial single night. He does have a place, a studio, and it's not my problem that he hates it. I called the movers and shipped everything to where my family lives, gave the new owner the keys, and left Deacon and his family's belonging in a storage unit. He talks so much garbage about my aunt, whom he didn't even know, and her children, who are hardworking human beings, and I wanted him to feel what it was like to have his own family disrespected and scorned just like he did to me. So after all the rage, I guess I'm sobering up. I'm angry because I feel unloved. He called me and sounded anxious and was talking at 4,000 words per mile. I'd never heard or seen him like this. He said that I ruined his family's Christmas. They arrived on the 23rd and I was already gone, and that they were crowded at his place. He went to the house and couldn't get in, and called, and I told him what I had done. He yelled at me for it. Was I the jerk here? He says that I'm scarring his family. I still need to fly back after Christmas to finish off some documents and transferring services, but I don't want to see him. Am I the jerk? Alright, folks, what do you think?
Well, legal implications aside, because I don't know the legalities of selling it all, I certainly don't think OP is in the wrong for wanting to sever all ties with this man. He does not seem like a good partner in the least bit. He doesn't respect OP at all. He moves people into their house without, well, her house, without really consulting her. He doesn't tell her when he's going on a road trip with her family and just kind of makes her worry about him. This dude is bad news.
You know, I'm sympathetic towards OP, but I don't feel like they handled this situation the best. I think that OP, what you really wanted to do was break up with him. It sounds like you wanted to break up with him for quite a long time, and you just didn't have the guts to do it. And I mean, I understand. It sounds like this guy is a terrible person, but I think giving them a heads up and telling them, hey, the house is being sold, you need to get out, is probably the best course of action. Although, I mean, it sounds like he knew OP was selling the house.
Right, he just didn't know when exactly. And he may have moved his family in an effort to thwart it. Again, I don't know the legal ramifications, but the one concern I have with telling him in advance is he might have done something drastic to try and make sure she couldn't sell the house.
Well, and that's fair, right? And I think that that's a fair point. He may have done something drastic. I mean, it sounds like he moved the family in, like what you were saying, to stop OP from selling the house. And OP, to their credit, they didn't destroy any of the property. They didn't ruin anything. They just moved it into a storage unit. It sounds like OP's probably paying for that storage unit. Right now, they have to be crammed in a one tiny room studio or something like that. And certainly, while that's uncomfortable, that's not the end of the world, right? I think that this relationship seems like it was on its way out for a long time, and I think that OP really just needed to put their foot down and say, no, you're not moving your family in, and no, we're done. So I feel bad for them. I certainly think that this was not a good situation. It seems like the boyfriend is trying to take advantage of OP. The family is trying to take advantage of OP. They went on this road trip without telling OP and lied to their face about this road trip. I don't know. There's just so many things that they did that was wrong that I just think that poor OP suffered through. But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. Unusual Potato 1515 says, not the jerk, well played. Serves their leeching butts right. You're only the jerk for staying with this guy and putting up with his garbage. And, you know, I really feel like people shouldn't blame somebody who stays in a bad relationship I know that this is often a joke that's thrown around, and I know I've made a comment about this before, but it's not really helpful to tell somebody, you're a jerk to yourself, right?
Well, exactly. And we don't know the circumstances or, whether this was a gradual change over time. I mean, they were together for a little bit of time before this,
Mm-hmm.
and most people don't change all at once.
Yeah.
It's usually gradual or once there's an engagement or something like that where they feel like OP is trapped or the person is trapped.
Well, and that too. And also, it's the sunk cost fallacy, right? At a
Mm-hmm.
certain point, you've put so much time, money, and energy into a relationship, you think, well, maybe it's better just to fix it. And sometimes relationships just can't be fixed. And it's clear that from his attitude that he wanted to open this relationship, and that by opening the relationship, he wanted his cake and to eat it too. He wanted the financial stability of his girlfriend or his wife, and he wanted the fun of having his new flings, right?
Right. Well, it's very clear that OP was just there to fulfill his needs,
Mm-hmm.
house him and probably paying for a good chunk of the bills and doing housework and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. And Mayakil 1605 HGH56 says, your response to their leeching behavior was a power move. Definitely not the jerk in that scenario. It's a reminder that self-respect is crucial. While handling the situation cleverly is worth considering your overall well-being in the relationship. Sometimes setting boundaries and standing up for yourself is a step towards a healthier dynamic. All right, folks, and our next letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Not Telling My Husband About the Gifts Ahead of Time? I'm a 36-year-old female and my husband is a 41-year-old male, and we have been married for almost 10 years now. He says that he's not good at picking out gifts, even though I just think he's lazy about it. Some form of weaponized incompetence. And so I do most of the gift buying. This year I was sent by work to South Africa, and I decided to buy Christmas gifts there. I had mentioned that one of our daughters wanted a bike, but he said no. I moved on, and I was going to buy gifts in South Africa anyways. Typically, he likes me to call and inform him when I'm buying the gifts, but this year I decided not to. After all, I'm the one buying the gifts with my money and making the decisions. He just wants to be kept in the loop. I got back home, wrapped some gifts, and sent them to my parents, since we were traveling together out of town for Christmas. I bought and wrapped his gifts as well. Christmas morning arrives, and there is no gift under the tree for me. My husband says I acted in bad faith and didn't tell him that I was bringing the gifts or I had bought the gifts, so he didn't think to buy me a gift. He says that I was acting like I didn't want him involved, so he didn't have time to plan. I said that it's Christmas, so obviously there are going to be gifts. He says not going the usual way was underhanded and threw him off, and that's why I have no gift. I was thrown off by this, and I stood my ground, but now I'm a bit unsure. Am I the jerk? Update: not really. Thank you for the clarification. I am working on leaving, but it's understandably not the easiest thing in my situation. Grateful for all the perspective. Sometimes someone gets in your head and you think that you are wrong when you're not. Really needed the clarification. Merry Christmas to you all. All right, folks, what do you think?
No, OP, I don't think you're the jerk. I mean, if he wants input on the gifts, then he can actually buy them or go along and help pick them out.
Yeah.
This whole, I need you to do this with your money, but I need to know what's in these gifts. Yeah, I understand that he probably wants to know so people don't thank him for gifts that he doesn't know what they are. But again, he's not invested enough. Like, his name shouldn't even be on those gifts.
Okay. OP's husband had one job. One job to pick out gifts for his wife.
Yep.
One job. He didn't have to buy the gifts for any other people. He was still going to be on the label. It wasn't like OP was blocking him or excluding him from giving those gifts with her, right? He had one job, and he failed, and he's blaming it on OP.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is Darvo if I've ever seen it, right?
Yep.
He's the victim because you went off and had your own autonomy and bought the gifts. No, OP is the victim. He is the victimizer here. He needs to figure out how to be an adult and pick out gifts. There are some skills that people might have difficulty with, right? But you should know your partner if you two are invested in each other, and giving gifts is something that you two do. to be able to pick out a gift for your wife, I would think.
And you shouldn't need reminders, and you shouldn't use gifts as leverage or punishments.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't do X, so that's why you don't get a gift.
Yeah. And this is clearly what he's doing. This is a power play of some form. Like, he feels powerless because OP took matters into their own hand, and so he wanted the power back, and so this is why he played this power move, right? That's at least my best guess. I don't know for sure what's going on in his head. There could be more complications than that.
It's either that or he just totally forgot because OP didn't say she was buying gifts.
Yeah, but I mean, the 25th comes every single year. It's not like we skip it some years, right? It's not like Christmas isn't known about months in advance by all the Christmas decorations that go up in October, right? I mean, I think we know the routine by now. We know it's coming. And I just think it's the worst excuse in the world, because he walks through one store and there's going to be Christmas decorations everywhere. So I think his excuse is flimsy at best. But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. Alright folks, and our next letter is titled, Am I a jerk for not telling my wife the true reason for our daughter's name? Am I the jerk for not telling my wife the truth about our daughter's name? I'm a 20-year-old male and my wife is a 20-year-old female, and we just had our first child and she was a beautiful baby girl. We decided to name her Ginny. I wanted to honor my grandmother, who was nicknamed Ginny, and this was her nickname since she was a child, and she was called that by everyone. I never told my wife the reason why or why I was pushing for that to be our daughter's name, and instead just insisted on it because I love the name. She agreed, and she liked it too, so that's what we named her. When my grandmother came to visit her new granddaughter, she cried for 30 minutes about how happy she was with the name. After everyone left the hospital, my wife turned and yelled at me, furious about why I had never told her about the reasoning behind the name. As far as I can tell, she's not upset that she's named after my grandmother, just mad that I didn't tell her the reason, and says that if she's going to name her kid something, that she would want to know if it had a specific connection. I figured that as long as she agreed to the name, that it was perfect for our daughter, and that it shouldn't matter why I wanted it. So am I the jerk? Alright, Books, what do you think?
Yeah, OP is being a jerk here, and that's a very weird omission. There are reasons why you might not want your child named after someone, and even if you don't care, you always want to know. Can you imagine how awkward that was for OP's wife to have the grandma? She's in the hospital, recovering from giving birth, and here's grandma bawling her eyes out about being so touched by a name, and his wife has no idea what's going on.
Yeah. I think for something like that, you really need to let your wife know what's going on. I think keeping her in the dark is not a good form of communication, because it's not communication, right?
Right.
You put her in a position where she was caught off guard by something pretty big, right? To be named after someone or have a namesake, is a pretty big deal, and a lot of people are really touched by it. And so I think your wife, not knowing that this was a namesake, was understandably caught off guard when she could have had time to emotionally prepare. I'm sure recovering from pregnancy isn't the best time to learn about something like this, right?
Exactly. Well, and she may, I don't know how well she knows your grandma, but she may have wanted to get to know her better. There are some people name their kids after who may not be good namesake. It sounds like in this case it's probably fine, but it still should have been your wife. Your wife should have had a say in that.
Yeah, I think that's really a delicate situation when it comes to naming a child, and that you have to be really upfront and honest about the reasons and motivations you have for wanting to name a child a certain way. And if you're not upfront with those, then it's going to create distrust in your relationship, because now how is she going to trust you in the future about other things, right?
Right. Well, and even if OP wasn't trying to pull one over on her, that's how it's going to feel. It's going to feel OP didn't trust me to want to name our child after his grandma. And then she's going to be like, well, why wouldn't I want to name our child after his grandma?
But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. And Mary707 says, your wife didn't know your grandmother's name? And OP replies, We live in different countries, and they've only met once before meeting in the hospital. I only refer to her as Grandma, so she never really heard anyone say the name in reference to her, since it's a nickname and not a legal name. And Greedy Fitbit says, you're the jerk. Info. Why wouldn't you tell your wife the reason? Choosing your child's name is something that a couple should decide together with all of the information. I don't understand why you would deliberately withhold information. The fact that it was purposeful makes it seem like you had something to hide. She's your wife, and this is the name of your baby that you created together. It just makes no sense that you wouldn't share the name with her. And Sharon Stone says, plus in many cultures, it's super bad vibes to name a child after someone who isn't alive. And OP replies, bad vibes? What kind of candy land do you live in? This isn't Woodstock. I just love OP's response here. Really, OP, you're asking people for input. You're asking people for information. And the best you can do is passive-aggressive comments. You know, I'm not sure about your relationship with your wife. All right, folks, it is tea time. Grab your beverages of choice. I've got some tea right here, and I've also got a special Christmas present from Amber. Amber saw that we were almost out of things here, and I'll probably reverse this in the editing, so some stuff will appear backwards. But yeah, she wrote me a joke book. Just Joking 101, Silly Puns, Rhymes, and More. So by Amber Hathaway. So she wrote this for me. It's a great pun book. So we have at least 1/4 of the year covered for puns, folks. So we have a new jovial Bob Stein. We have a jovial Amber Stein.
Some of these might be worthy of jovial Bob Stein.
So let's hear the first pun that Amber has in store for us.
What tool should you use to remove nails from a bird feeder?
Oh, you know, I know this one. I know exactly what tool you should use to remove nails from a bird feeder. A hammer. You should use a hammer because it has one of those hooks on the back, and so you can easily remove it. And then, or if you want, you can just nail it all the way in, and then no one will know the difference.
A crowbar.
You know, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
And there's a little picture here. I put some pictures from Canva in there.
And we can't reveal the jokes for tomorrow.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, you can't see the jokes, but here's the picture Amber has. And I have Earl Grey. Alright folks, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. Happy Tuesday, spelled TWO. Can you believe it? We're almost to the new year. Amber, we need some kind of moral advice and or guidance. And please have it in the form of a saying written on a coffee cup.
Passive aggression is not a gift.
It isn't. It really is not. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Bye.